Hi, hope you guys are doing well. Welcome back to our weekly episode Q&A. Let's get right into it. HBO scheduled the battle episode of House of the Dragon for the weekend of the Rings of Power premiere. And they just released the first episode of House of the Dragon on YouTube on the same night Rings of Power premiered. Is HBO playing the Game of Thrones? I think they are, of course. I mean, it was pretty bold of them to even try to compete with Lord of the Rings. Especially after season 8 and that whole backlash, they really had to win the people over. So it was a pretty bold move and I think it paid off. In terms of this sort of rivalry that is going on now, I think we as fantasy fans, we're blessed right now. Obviously, I saw the huge backlash for Lord of the Rings. Apparently, it's not a very faithful adaptation, and man, I don't know anything about that world, so I will watch it when all episodes are out. Right now, just focusing on House of the Dragon and nothing else. But I will check it out. I'll give this one a shot. I'm going into this with an open mind. I'm not the biggest Lord of the Rings fan. I have to admit that. I watched those movies when I was a kid. I'm not as invested as someone who is familiar with the canon would be. It's the similar situation like back in the day when season 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 of Game of Thrones started to deviate from the books, I had huge problems. I didn't agree with a lot of the decisions, and I think that's the same thing here. Even though I had my problems with a lot of creative choices, it's not about me, it's about the broad audience. And like 90% of the people who watched Game of Thrones past season 5, I'm sure they liked it, they loved it. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being a casual fan of something, and that's what's gonna happen with Lord of the Rings. I'm just gonna watch this like very laid back on a Sunday. I'm gonna binge the first season. I hope that it doesn't get too heated between the fans of Lord of the Rings and House of the Dragon. It's very childish behavior, so I just hope we as a community, as a fantasy fan community, we're just happy that we have both shows. I hope it doesn't get too bad, but again, from a corporate point of view, this makes sense. This only makes sense that yes, they release those things on YouTube or whatever. It's they want to make money and only makes sense. Faiz asks, what do you think of Sonoya Mizuno's Mysaria? I think she's butchering it. Okay, it's way too early to talk about butchering so far. I think, yes, she's the most generic one so far, and I'm not too big of a fan of what they're doing with the character so far, but she has a very interesting road ahead. She's becoming a very important player overall in the Dance of the Dragons, and she's gonna play a pretty big part, so there's some character growth there, some character development there that can be explored, and I'm more than willing to give this time and see where it goes. And I'll admit that, yeah, so far she's very generic and probably my least favorite, but doesn't have to mean anything. We're 2 episodes in. Let's see. It's gonna be better, I'm sure. Omkar asks, why didn't Viserys tell Corlys that he will not marry Laena in private? Gamma Cap's question goes into the same direction. Why was Alicent at the small council meeting? I could come up with whatever reasons right now. At the end of the day, I think, yeah, they wanted to have this little exchange of looks between Rhaenyra and Alicent. This is obviously a TV drama kind of thing. They wanted to have that scene. They could have had it, as you said, they could have had a scene between Corlys and Viserys talking somewhere. They could have had the scene of Alicent and Rhaenyra somewhere else. But at the end of the day, who cares? It's just a tiny little thing. It's not groundbreaking. This doesn't affect the story. And you won't see me nitpicking about such things on this channel here. If I have problems in the future with any of their decisions, if I don't agree with something, best believe I'm gonna tell you about it. But stuff like this, it's like whatever. Bazia Strategy asks, do you think Alicent is playing the Game of Thrones, or is she just Otto's puppet? Alicent is definitely not playing the Game of Thrones. She's nothing but a pawn. She's gonna be a player of the Game of Thrones in the future, but right now she's just a victim. She's just a child that has become a set piece in a bigger chess match between the powerful people of Westeros. There's nothing that I can blame her for here. If anything, I feel really sorry for her. They emphasize a lot on her finger picking, and I think this is used to show her anxiety. Like, you can really feel sorry for Alicent. Yeah, there's no player yet. She's gonna become a player of the Game of Thrones, a pretty significant one down the line, but not yet. Betrayed King asks, would you prefer it if the other intimate Targaryen only scenes, Viserys and Daemon, Viserys and Aemma, Viserys and Rhaenyra, Rhaenyra and Rhaenys, etc., were also spoken in High Valyrian? Yeah, good point. I think they could do a lot more with that. I think it even goes beyond the Targaryens. I think it character like Otto Hightower should also be able to speak some High Valyrian. I think they're saving it for the special occasions. Like when Daemon was introduced, they had them talk High Valyrian, and I think this will carry on to be like that it's always reserved to be for special moments. On the other hand though, it would be quite annoying if I would have to read the subtitles all the time. I'm not learning High Valyrian anytime soon, so there's pros and cons here, but yeah, they could definitely do more with that. MD Hassan asks, why did Otto Hightower go to Dragonstone, despite knowing how dangerous it was? There was a lot of speculation, a lot of mixed feelings about Otto going to Dragonstone, but in his mind, I think it just had to be him. Just his rivalry, just his hatred for the guy, and I think he felt pretty safe. I've seen a lot of people talk about how dangerous it was or how stupid it was for Otto to go there, but I really don't think Daemon, as long as Viserys is alive, that he would go as far as killing Viserys' Hand of the King and 2 of his own sworn Kingsguard. I don't think he would go so far. And this is something that is demonstrated later on when Daemon had a scene with Corlys at Driftmark and Corlys was starting to talk shit about Viserys. Daemon wouldn't have it. So it just goes to show that there's so much respect and love between the brothers. It's a very difficult relationship, but overall there's just a lot of love. And I'll admit, yeah, they could have been improved if you had Rhaenys there. If you had Rhaenys there, for example, if I had to do it, I would have had way more men go with Otto Hightower. I would have had Rhaenys there from the get-go. And maybe Rhaenyra would still come and steal Rhaenys' moment. That would have actually tied in quite beautifully with how Rhaenys lectured Rhaenyra. So maybe if Rhaenyra would have arrived with Syrax during them having a face-off and be the one to steal their moment and show Rhaenys that, yeah, I'm actually different. I mean what I say. Maybe that would have been better. I don't know. I'm not a storyteller. I'm not a writer. And I'm okay with the scene. We got to see the best Dragonstone we've ever seen on television. It really looked and felt alive. You could just feel that this island was alive, that it is a volcanic island. The dialogue itself was very good all throughout the scene, and I have nothing to complain about here. I really liked it. Mohamed Akrot asks, do you think that Aemond is the son of Daemon? No, at least not in House of the Dragon. That window is closing very soon. There's so many relationships of Daemon that still have to come, even in season 1. There's still so much that has to happen before we even get to the actual dance, so I don't see the point here. Julie Reviews asks, now that they've introduced the Long Night threat in House of the Dragon, how would you feel about Melisandre, who is still alive during this time, possibly making an appearance on the show? Carice van Houten is certainly interested. I hope not. I really hope not, because this would kind of take away from a character called Alice Rivers, who could really be House of the Dragon's Melisandre. There's a lot of similarity there, and I hope that the focus stays on Alice. However, if they're doing that Corlys show, then I would be fine with her showing up in Ashai. That would actually be quite cool, because not only would this enable us to see Ashai from Corlys' point of view, we could also follow Melisandre and really get an insight as to how it is to live in Ashai. So yeah, I think a Melisandre cameo is gonna come eventually, but as I said, I hope it's in the Corlys show, or something similar to that. By the way guys, please follow Julie Reviews on Instagram. She's one of the best pages there. One of the sweetest people that I've gotten to know over the years on Instagram, and yeah, definitely go check out her page. Leif Eisenberg asks, at which point do you think they will conclude the series as a whole? Okay guys, last warning, this is gonna be very spoiler heavy. I think it ends with Rhaenyra and Daemon's son, Aegon III, sitting on the Iron Throne and him kind of establishing a new small council, having Tywin Lannister as Hand of the King. That's gotta be the end, because you establish a whole new set of powerful people there. I think Miguel Sapochnik talked about how House of the Dragon could become an anthology series. They could do a huge time jump and do the first Blackfire Rebellion. They could go back and do a Maegor the Cruel series. They could show Aegon's conquest. They can do a lot of stuff here, and I think House of the Dragon could actually run for 12 seasons if they chose to. Obviously, it would be different stories and different characters, different actors and showrunners probably, but overall I think this could run for a very long time, and House of the Dragon is always gonna be about the Targaryens, and there's so much story to unpack. I do hope I get my Dunkin' Egg one day though. So yeah, I think it ends with Aegon, but the show itself House of the Dragon itself wouldn't have to end at all with the Dance of the Dragons. Kevin asks, is there anything so far that could easily disappoint fans of Game of Thrones? I don't know, actually, because, well, I can only speak for myself, and this is always subjective. So far, episode 1 and 2 of House of the Dragon would have been the very best episodes of Game of Thrones since 2014 season 4, in my opinion. In terms of writing, in terms of how these characters talk, how it looks on screen even, how some of the things are even improved visually, whether it be the throne or Dragonstone. Obviously this is just me, but I'm very happy with what we got so far, and I don't see any problems the way Game of Thrones had its problems over the years. So yeah, so far I don't see anything wrong with it. And that is all I have for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please feel free to subscribe to the channel, would very much appreciate that. And until then, take care and see us later.